Good evening. Welcome to the July 21st, 2020 regular meeting of the Gary Common Council. As is our custom, we will begin our meeting with a word of prayer by Mr. Terrell Buns of the Gary Housing Authority and a resident of the 4th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. If everyone would bow their heads or do what you're accustomed to doing. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to come before you, the elected officials for this great city, on behalf of the citizens of this city, in this common Gary Council meeting. Father, we pray that you would operate our minds, operate our lips, operate our hearts, that all of the decisions and discussion is amicably done and done on behalf of the betterment of the city. Father, we may disagree, but we agree to disagree amicably, but we pray in all that you are glorified and that the actions of this council benefit the city, its citizens, and the city as a whole. These requests and blessings we ask in your son Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Buns, for that prayer. This time we will have our Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Before we have our roll call, I certainly want to acknowledge, and I'm sure we'll do more acknowledgement during special and select, the life and legacy of former Councilwoman Carolyn D. Rogers. Her visitation was today, and we certainly want to send our condolences to her family and recognize her before beginning this meeting for 20 years of service to the city and citizens of Gary, Indiana. As I said, I'm sure there will be other commendations, but I thought it appropriate to just begin on that note. And I would ask that we would all take a brief moment of silence in her memory. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you all. Okay, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins.
Here.
Councilman Brewer.
Here.
Councilwoman Brown. Councilwoman.
She's present.
Councilwoman Caldwell.
Muted.
Here.
Councilman Godwin.
Present.
Councilman Lay.
Here.
Councilman Weatherspoon.
Present.
Councilman Williams. Councilman Williams. And President Brown. Mr.
Councilman
President,
Williams is muted.
I'm here. Sorry about that.
Mr. President, there are 8 present, 1 absent.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. With 8 members present and 1 absent, we have a quorum to conduct the business of the Gary Common Council. As was noted at our last meeting, we did not have the minutes for the, I believe it would be the June 16th meeting. So at this time, council members, have we received the June 16th, 2020 minutes, Madam Clerk?
Yes, they're in the
Okay.
packet.
Council members, in your package are the June 16th, 2020 meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve said minutes?
So moved, Mr. President.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins.
Yes.
Councilman Brewer.
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown.
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell.
Yes.
Councilman Lay.
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon.
Yes.
Councilman Williams.
Yes.
And President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8-0.
With a vote of 8-0, the meeting minutes of June 16, 2020 stand approved. This time, is there a motion to approve the minutes of our July 7th, 2020 meeting?
Those are not in the package.
Have these not been prepared yet?
No.
Okay, so we will delay our approval of those until the August 4th meeting, and hopefully we will get those in the interim. Thank you, Madam Clerk. This time we'll have our assignment of council pending ordinances and resolutions on first reading.
CPO 2020-37, an ordinance amending Title 15 entitled Land Usage, Chapter 123 entitled Zoning Code of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Gary, Indiana, petitioner Payday Group Check and Real Estate Incorporated, 5700 Melton Road, Gary, Indiana, property at 617 West Ridge Road, Gary, Indiana.
Planning and Development.
Mr. President,
Councilman Lay is recognized.
I apologize, I slept something. I wanted to ask you to suspend the rules to introduce on first reading 2020-39.
Okay.
It's the amendment to ordinance 9305. The sponsors are the mayor and myself.
Okay. Is the clerk in possession of that amendment?
No, I'm not.
Okay. And just to make sure I'm correct, Attorney Williams, to suspend the rules and add it to the agenda, is that that's a unanimous vote that's required, correct?
No.
Just
no,
a majority.
Just a simple majority to add to the agenda.
Okay. Thank you. There is a motion to add CPO 2020-39, which is an amendment to ordinance number 9305. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Any questions or discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilman Brewer is recognized.
did that go out to us, email, to our emails? Because I was looking for it.
Councilman Lay, was that? I don't believe so.
No, apparently it was held up because Mr. Bigner was making changes, I guess, for the administration. So this is really a bifurcated. I asked for one set of changes. Mr. Bigner became involved and made another set of changes. So I do not believe that you have this copy whatsoever. I was called about 10 minutes to 6 and said they finally had an ordinance number. The reason I went ahead and decided to ask you to do this, the timeline, as I understand, on the confirmation of the Broadway project is August 4th. And certainly I believe we should entertain the amendment, and I will explain why when we get down after the standing committees on July the 28th. That means we don't have to do anything extraordinary. So I'm not sure where. I believe 2020-39 has come to me, but it came today. I was hoping it went to the entire council, but apparently it did not.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Atkins is recognized.
just for clarification, whose responsibility would it be to get us this document if the clerk does not have it yet?
Well, it was in the hands of Attorney Poe, was the one that had was drafting the document, the amendment.
Okay.
I'm merely a sponsor with the mayor, so I don't think either the mayor or myself would get it to the council. He also had to, as I understand it, I believe he's online. He got the 2020-39 about I'd say about 5:30, 5:40. There was no number as I understood it. In other words, we were not going to do anything, which was going to be regretful, because we're trying to maintain this timeline, as I understand.
Okay.
But it's not a big deal with me. If the council don't want to do it now, that's fine. We just simply will have to have probably some kind of special meeting.
Mr. President,
I wouldn't.
Councilwoman Brown is recognized.
what is 2039? I don't know what it is. What is it?
So as I understand it, it's an amendment to the community benefits agreement. And so that's what it is. I think around, and maybe Councilman Lay, if you want to add some insight into what the specific changes would be.
Yeah, there was a lot of things I was going to talk about based upon things Ms. Carolyn McCready said, but let me tell you this whole thing has become a comedy of error. First of all, this committee is not a formalized 501c4. You can't do anything with it. I went back, the council can't. I mean, I went back and looked at the MOU. My copy was not signed by anyone from the committee or the corporation. I then asked Ms. Janice White, my legislative aide, to send me a copy. It had not been signed. I went to then attorney Trent McCain, and what we have here is where the mayor signed the document, failed to date it, and the contractor signed it all. I think that was absolutely improper. I'm looking at it now. The Board of Works signed it on December the 18th. The mayor signed it, no date, and the person who's the party to this memorandum of understanding did not sign.
We're not talking about the memorandum, just for clarification, we're not talking about the MOU. We're talking about an amendment to.
Well, that's why, but I had to give you, I was giving you
Okay.
background.
Okay.
Yes.
In other words, why we need to amend it. But rather than to take all of this time on the council, you can't give that person anything. Just let's move it to the next meeting. That's all. In other words, don't put it on the agenda. Let's withdraw the agenda 2020-39 and send it to the 28th of July.
Well, that'll be the committee meeting.
Yes. That would be the committee meeting. I think we can do that without assigning it to our agenda tonight. If not, we're going to mess up this timeline. But I don't think that's important. You no longer can give this 501c4. Somebody was mistaken. Either Ms. McCready is mistaken, I am mistaken, or the Internal Revenue Service. I spent at least a half hour talking to the Internal Revenue Service using their employer identification number today. So whatever's in 9305 can't be done. Cannot currently be done.
And so, just for my own
Mr.
clarity,
Chair,
Attorney Williams is recognized.
yes, just to be clear, I believe in order to discuss this properly in a committee meeting, it needs to be added to this agenda and assigned to a committee.
I agree.
I agree.
I agree to that. But I didn't want to take all this time trying to explain to Councilwoman Brown what it was, and I think her question was valid since she don't have it.
Right.
Right.
Mr. President, we did receive the email from Attorney Paul. Thank you, Attorney Paul, which has CPO 2020-39. But this is actually, I think you need to send us not the revised version because it's showing the markups on here, Rodney.
I'm actually signing that right now. I figured that because I tried to figure out a way to send it without the revisions, but I'm sending that as a PDF right now. So the changes will show what has been striked out from the original version, still struck out, and then the amended portions of it will be bold.
That's how it is on the one that you already sent.
Is there a bunch of color and everything like that?
No. But
Okay. So
still seeing what was striked out and.
okay, I'll send the a clean version as well, just showing what it would look like after after passage.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion? I will just say that I think this is of importance. I'm not making a position on the amendment itself, but I think the fact that we don't seem to all have it before us. Now, I also recognize that it's not like we're voting on it on all three readings tonight, and there is an opportunity to review it and read it. However, I'm not sure it's good practice. That's just my opinion. If we don't collectively have it all, the right version before us. But That's just my opinion. Any other questions or discussion related to adding CPO 2020-39?
Well, that's my issue. It hasn't come through on my end yet. I tried to refresh and I haven't gotten it yet either. So that's my issue. I do feel uncomfortable voting, putting it on the agenda. I don't even have the actual
Right.
document.
Well, Mr. President,
Councilman Lay?
if the government is run through committees, putting it on the agenda, it doesn't matter whether it's right, wrong, or green, or really what you have seen it. We're doing stuff that I absolutely agree with, or disagree with. We're making statements, then we leave the air and we correct them, and the clerk correcting them. Again, you're trying to take the timeline. What's in 9305 is absolutely legally incorrect. And we need to at least take a look at 9305 in terms of the fact it is trying to say that it's McCrady's organization, which is an organization of one that was incorporated 9/27/19. And again, I've indicated all these signatures. We can't do anything with 9305. I thought we were going to discuss that before the confirmatory. That's what I thought we were doing. But if everybody feels it's just so interest to the council to put it on the agenda, don't put it there. Don't put it there. I don't have a problem with that. I know exactly what I've done in terms of this research. I do not understand why any of this can be there when the person who is supposed to be the beneficiary of it or to the contract didn't sign it. So let's move it and try to do it before August the 4th. So that's fine with me.
I have a question.
Well, I will agree with you on that. Let's move it so we can do it.
I just have a quick question. Mr. Pohl, you're acting in the capacity from the law department of the city, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and you're familiar with this ordinance, 9305?
Yes.
Did you draft that ordinance?
I can say that I reviewed the ordinance. I think it was mostly drafted by then Councilwoman Wyatt with the help of the CBA, that coalition at the time, and then with also input from former Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson.
And did you or any other member of the law department raise issue with the legality of that ordinance upon your review of it?
I won't say that we raised issue as in, to the extent that Councilman Lay is raising the issue. I think he's looked into it a little bit further than I think what we had originally anticipated. But I mean, I think there are things that, as this ordinance is starting to play out, we're starting to see, okay, well, there's a lot of things that are very, very vague, that are not, everybody's not necessarily of the same interpretation. I think that there are things that are going to be very, very difficult for both developers and community members and council members to try and navigate in the current state that it's in right now.
Just one last question. Would you say in the spirit of administrative law that where there is vagueness, we kind of err on the side of the administration, choosing what they think a reasonable interpretation would be?
Yes, but I would caution against making decisions that could be determined or could be challenged as arbitrary and capricious. And I think that without as clear of language as possible in certain instances, you could have a determination that this council makes, and then several years from now with the same ordinance, a different determination is made, and then somebody looks back and says, hey, well, this was very, very vague at the time. This was, the decision now is arbitrary, capricious, as opposed to this decision that was made by a previous council. I think at this point now, with some of the very valid points that I think that Councilman Lay is making, if we're going to be looking at the ordinance, we might as well be looking at, it is in totality instead of just kind of piecemealing it, piecemealing changes that should happen with the ordinance.
Thank you. Any other questions and discussion about adding CPO 2020-39 to the agenda? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
No.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
No.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
You're muted.
Yes.
President Godwin.
No.
Mr. President, the vote is 5 yes, 3 noes.
With a vote of 5 yeas and 3 nays, CPO 2020-39 is added to the agenda and will be assigned, if you will, to Planning and Development. Please continue.
CPR 2020-08, a resolution by the Gary Common Council calling on Indiana Governor Eric J. Holcomb to initiate a more robust and compassionate program for the early release of nonviolent incarcerated persons most vulnerable to the COVID-19 pandemic. Sponsored by Cozy Weatherspoon, Councilman of the 2nd District, White Williams, Councilman 6th District.
Public Safety.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Lay.
They're showing Mr. Witherspoon on this document in the 1st district. Should be the 2nd district.
Yes,
Hey,
it's a typo.
yep, we note that correction.
CPR 2020-09, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Gary regarding climate resilience and recovery, sponsored by Mayor Jerome Prince, City of Gary.
Planning and Development.
Mr. President, ends the assignment of pending ordinances and resolutions.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilman Brewer is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Planning and Development Committee has before CPO 2020-37. Is it okay if I do all 3 of them together? Mr.
Yes,
President?
sir.
CPO 2020-37, CPO 2020-39, and CPO 2020-09. CPO 2020-09, I'm sorry. I approve this to be reporting out to the council. Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Witherspoon.
Yes.
A majority of the Planning and Development Committee has approved this to be reported out to the council.
All right. Thank you, Councilman Brewer. This time we'll go with Councilman Williams.
Thank you, Mr. President. At the present time, the Public Safety Chair would like to report out the orders, council pending ordinance 20-08 to yes, council pending ordinance 2008. Mr. Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilman Godwin,
Yes.
we'd like to have a public hearing set for Tuesday, July.
We'll do that during the second reading. What? Yeah. Okay. Councilman Brewer?
Mr. President,
Yes,
the
sir.
Planning and Development Committee would like to report out CPO 2020-37, 39, and 09.
Councilman Williams?
Yes. Sorry.
Yeah, so you report out CPR 2020-08?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you. All right. At this time, we will have our special and select. Any members wish to be acknowledged for special and select?
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell is recognized.
boards and commissions has 2 events to take care of this evening. The first is last year, boards and commissions appointee to the tourism board was forfeited because we didn't meet the deadline. So the tourism board appointed someone. That person was Janae Eckenbacher from the Majestic Casino, Spectacle Entertainment. And then it became an issue with another city who was representing us because she didn't live in our city. So at this time, I need to make a vote. I need to take a vote from the council that we accept Ms. Janae as our representative to the tourism board.
We have a motion to accept Janae Armbach as our council representative to the tourism board. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded by Councilwoman Brown. Any questions or discussion?
I have a question.
Councilman Lay?
I do know her and I've worked with her. Why are we unable to find someone here within the city of Gary? I constantly hear the council argue that point, or debate it, I should say.
Councilman Lay, I appointed Michelle Robinson, our previous person, and based on Indiana Code 6-9-2-3, I was late in appointing Ms. Robinson, so therefore the Spiro guy, he replaced her.
I understood that, but that was
If I
last
can
year.
chime in,
Attorney Williams is recognized.
yeah, I think I'll be able to help Attorney Lay. There's actual pending federal lawsuit about this issue, and we have been asked to assist the tourism board. When we failed to meet the deadline under Title VI, the current statute allows for the lieutenant governor's representative on the commission to make an appointment irrespective to residency. And they made that appointment. We are now simply accepting that appointment in an effort to assist the Tourism Bureau to get rid of the litigation. The city of Hammond sued based on two issues. They too had missed their deadline and they had some litigation of which I'm not privy to. This was just a germane issue that we're trying to help them get rid of. Assuming we don't miss the deadline again, we will of course appoint whomever the council desires. But at this point, this is needed to get rid of the litigation.
I understand, in other words, no case in controversy or the issue is mooted as far as we're concerned.
Yes, exactly, because the statute does not concern residency.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Williams. Any other questions or discussion about the motion on the table? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
No.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
This present vote is 7 yes, 1 no.
With 7 yeas and 1 no, Janae Armbach is appointed as the Garrett County Council representative. I think it's on the South Shore Convention and Visitors Tourism Board.
Yes.
Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell.
Yes, Mr. President, boards and commissions would like to have a committee meeting Tuesday, July the 28th. That's my motion for July the 28th at 5 o'clock to interview for the position of Economic Development Commission representative.
Thank you.
Mr. President.
Councilman Brewer is recognized.
Yes, during this time of special and select, I invited two very important people inside our community, Dr. Roland Walker, which is our health commissioner, and also our police chief, Chief Brian Evans, to be here today to discuss some issues with us that we have inside our health field and inside our police department for our public safety there. I would like to start with Dr. Roland Walker at this time. Mr. Walker?
Mr. President,
Councilman Lay is recognized.
yeah, one of the complaints that I have been getting is that sometimes we put business before business. In other words, this isn't something that affects any of the ordinances or resolutions. Why can't we move it in the agenda to after we have conducted the real business of this council? And then, of course, they can make any report. We even keep the mayor to the end. I do not understand why we would start allowing members of the administration, to come in at this time.
Mr. President?
Councilman Brewer.
We have always entertained different individuals before we do special and selected council members for as special presentation. And I announced this at the last council meeting that I requested for these two to come. And I do understand these are very two important people inside our community holding very special offices inside the city. And I would not like to belabor the time in keeping them with the city council this evening if we don't have any issues with them other than the questions that I have or the council has this time.
Mr. President, and then I'll let it go. The use of the word always is wrong. Nothing is always. That may have been the way the previous councils conducted business. I'm simply saying then we should restrict them to 3 minutes, not where we have an exchange that lasts a half an hour. If that's what's going to be done, they're going to report 3 minutes and that ends it. But if we go into a committee report or debate on what they're reporting, I think it should be at the end. So that's why I raised the question. But if Mr. Brewer says it's going to be short, then fine.
No, it may not be short, Mr. Lay, because these are two very important issues that we're dealing with. So I can't promise you that.
Yeah, but you've decided they're important. You have. That's why I'm putting it at the end. I'm not sure.
Okay, all right. So here's what we'll do, Councilman Brewer. If we could have Dr. Walker to address us, maybe for 3 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes, and then if there are some follow-up questions, we can do that where we have on our agenda for questions of city officials.
Mr. President,
Councilman Brewer.
That a motion been made by this body to give them 3 minutes at this time?
Okay, there's been a motion to do what?
Is that a motion being made to give these two 3 minutes at this time to speak?
I move that we give them 3 minutes.
All right.
Each.
Okay, it's been moved. Is there a second? Second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and properly seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mr. President, I'm sorry. I got distracted. What are we voting on?
This is a motion to limit the discussion to 3 minutes for the two speakers to discuss COVID-19, I believe, as well as police issues. And so it was moved and seconded. And at this time, we have questions and discussion about it. All right.
I have a question, Mr. President.
Yes, Councilwoman Atkins.
So is it either 3 minutes or nothing, or is it just to restrict the 3 minutes in terms of commentary?
It's just to restrict to 3 minutes. I think otherwise there's no, and I stand to be corrected, Attorney Williams, there's nothing in our rules that limits this particular portion. Now, public comment, I believe we do have restricted for 3 minutes in our rules, but.
That's correct.
Okay, so otherwise it will be unlimited.
Okay.
All right, this may be a first in terms of our parliamentary history, I'm not sure.
This is a first, and I have never seen the police chief or the health commissioner be slighted like this, but we can take the vote and let's see where it lands at.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
No.
Councilman Brewer,
No.
Councilwoman Brown,
No.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
No.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
No.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
No.
Mr. President, the vote is 6 yes, I'm sorry, 2 yes, 6 no's.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. With 2 yeas and 6 nays, these speakers will have an unlimited amount of time, but we suggest reasonable.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Point of order, Mr. President. They have an unlimited amount of time. I don't know what a reasonable unlimited amount of time will be. I'm sure y'all can determine that. So they can take whatever time they need to do this. Would you tell me what time it is now? Your watch?
It's 6:48.
Okay, so
All right.
they have an unlimited amount of time. And just for the record, previously, I've seen the council vote to restrict a council person, let alone another person coming in, to 3 minutes. That, in fact, was done, I believe, January the 11th, 1996. No, it's not funny, Mr. Brewer. You just interrupted this meeting. Let's see how long this takes.
All right. Thank you, Councilman Lay. Councilman Brewer, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think these 2 issues that we're about to discuss trump anything that's on this agenda because they definitely affect each and every last one of us in some kind of way. So, Dr. Roland Walker, I appreciate having you before the City Council. If you can give us an overview since this pandemic has started, where we at, what are you projecting? What we will be looking at going towards the future there? I know the mayor had just put a mandate out with us requiring everyone to wear masks, and it's out throughout the whole county now. So if you can just chime in and give us an overview at this time. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for having me here today. I appreciate it. I will be brief as to respect everybody's time. So as this pandemic first began becoming more global and more well-known in March, we began meeting and discussing the things that needed to be done to protect the citizens of Gary. In general, any health officer, me included, would like to be as restrictive as possible to protect the citizens. But then, as always, there's going to be other concerns in terms of making sure that people have their liberties and freedoms, right? So in this case, Gary has been a leader almost every time in what we've done. Early on, we closed the city municipal buildings to the public, and then following that, the county followed suit, and then you started seeing that statewide. In addition to that, we began limiting amount of people to gather at one time, and you started seeing other municipalities to follow suit. And I just want to make that point also, that's why it's extremely important to have local health departments. A lot of times it's county only, and what you will find is that you're trying to put something forward for an entire county, and you get a lot of pushback between different municipalities. So East Chicago and Gary have that advantage. As an overall, if you've watched the numbers and the trends, about 2 weeks ago, we got down to our low of two cases in a day. Now, everybody was celebrating because Gary has really done better than the national average. But what I said at that time is we're watching the national trends, and I said, we can celebrate all we want because the citizens of Gary, actually, the people that have done a great job, the citizens of Gary have been wearing masks. The citizens of Gary, for the most part, have been limiting their gatherings and doing their social distancing. But there's no hard borders here. You're going to have people coming in from all over the nation, and if they're not following those rules where they are, when they come here, they have an increased chance of bringing virus to us. And now we've seen that. So over the last 2 weeks, we're seeing an increasing trend. Within the last 7 days, we've seen 20 cases. Over the last 7 days, we're averaging around 11 cases a day. Today, we had 12 cases. So we're seeing that increase. Seeing that trend, we had discussions with the mayor about having a mask mandate. A lot of people thought that wasn't going to be necessary because I will admit the citizens of Gary have been very good so far about wearing masks. But it's also about giving leadership to people who come into the city and leadership for municipalities around here. And as you saw, shortly after Gary did their mask mandate, you saw Maryville fall very next day or 2 days later, and you saw Lake County following suit. Additionally, had a lot of discussions with the different school districts, not just one school district here, right? We have a lot of Gary, I think, has the second most charter schools per capita in the nation. So therefore, we have a lot of different school boards to deal with. We had a meeting of 8 school districts at the Genesis Center about 2 weeks ago, everybody discussing their plans. And in that meeting, I explained a couple of things. One, how we need to really be careful about contact sports. Contact sports being wrestling, basketball, football. There's no such thing as social distancing in those sports. And so intramural, high school, I mean, I know people think that those kids don't get sick, but those kids do end up getting virus, and then they end up taking it home to family members. So that's extremely important that we try to regulate that. So what I think you're going to start seeing, as nobody has their full-on plan announced yet, you're starting to see a lot of hybrids, learning school situations, and you're going to see a lot of e-learning. I know for a fact that a lot of the school systems are afraid to be the first to say, hey, we're not going to be full-on back in school. But that's a discussion I make sure at least everybody had. I'm not going to put out any edict myself that says you have to do it one way or the other. I'm going to advise in terms of that, but I'm going to give really strong suggestions in terms of what's safe for the citizens, because we need to protect ourselves, plain and simple. We've had lots of good help, working on a plan now with the state to bring some direct funding and testing to the health department, and that's almost finalized, as well as we've seen some individuals. The Ford Motor Company provided us with face masks. Anthem Insurance, Chantel Johnson provided face masks. And also, if you remember, Willie Wilson provided 50,000 face masks. So we've had a lot of help on that front. But I think the take home should be, while the citizens of Gary have done an excellent job, harder times are coming. I mean, I just want to be open and honest with that. There is no vaccine, and this is the direction we're going to have to do social distancing. We're going to have to do PPE, masks, gloves, sanitation, because that's our only weapon. So I'm hoping that people are paying attention, knowing that our cases are going to go up, illnesses are going to go up, and we actually are the people, the citizens are the people who have the power to try to mitigate this risk. So that's it for me. Thank you.
So, Mr. Walker, so right now you're not giving any advice to any of the schools about what are your suggestions, what they should do, far as mandatory. Well, I know it's a problem with trying to get the younger kids to wear the mask and keep the mask on. So are you going to give your opinion, what you think the schools should do?
I absolutely have given an opinion. I do think there should be mandatory face masks for anybody over 2 years of age. That being said, that is really, really hard to get a 4-year-old to wear a mask all day. So I've also made the suggestion that there should not be a full 8-hour school day. And it probably, particularly for the younger students, should not be 5 days a week. We've had discussions about where screening should take place. Should it take place at the school, or if there's busing, it probably should take place before they get on the bus. We made suggestions about lockers because there's large congregations together. We made suggestions about sports. So we've had those discussions, and they do have the authority to make the final decisions, but I've let my opinions known about what is the most safe thing to do at the schools.
And what about testing? Are you all still providing free testing for individuals?
So we have some good news. Right now, the health department, so manpower is very hard because the health department has to do other things, but we are still doing testing at the health department. I have been able to secure for the next 2 weeks testing at the St. Timothy site again in the parking lot. So that'll be drive up. So we'll have that for 2 weeks starting next week. I want to tell you accurately. I want to tell you it's Tuesday through Saturday at St. Timothy for the next 2 weeks. That's been the most effective site just because of the size of the parking lot, and two, it's since kind of centrally in the city and near a highway exit. We've also used Hudson Campbell parking lot. We've seen some success there, but we saw a larger count at St. Timothy, so we chose to ask them to let us use their parking lot first. And also, we didn't want to interfere. There's going to be a food giveaway that we are coordinating with Indiana School of Medicine that's going to be at Hudson Campbell during that period too. So I didn't want to interfere with that.
Thank you.
Mr. President.
Who was
Mr.
that?
President. Councilman Weatherspoon.
Councilman Weatherspoon. Your screen didn't light up. Sorry about that.
Okay, yeah. Question for Dr. Walker. Dr. Walker, of course, earlier during this pandemic, we participated in a mask giveaway, you and I. Just wondering, with the economic situation with a lot of households here in the city of Gary, are you sponsoring or are you making available masks to the general public?
So what we've done the health department does have some PPE. We've been able to get some from the state, from obviously Dr. Wilson, from Anthem, from Ford Motor Company, and from U.S. Steel. And I know I'm leaving out people, and I apologize. Our first goal has been to provide PPE to the nursing homes, because that's been our highest rate of infectivity, right? And so I'm trying to protect those places that are the most vulnerable. We then do get several requests from some medical facilities, from churches, and we try to accommodate those as much as humanly possible. And we've done mass giveaways with different organizations. We've done mass giveaway at the housing authorities too. It becomes very hard knowing that we need to keep some in stock, not knowing where our next, stockpile may come from. That being said, we try to strategically plan. But yes, we have continued to give away, because it's just hard to tell people no when we know we're protecting people, and you just try to be proactive and keep pushing. So we've continued to hand masks out, yes.
Mr. Walker? Mr. Walker?
Councilman Williams, yep.
Thank you. Is there a day coming up soon, hopefully in a week, that yourself and the mayor will be discussing with the school manager these procedures for entering the schools?
As a matter of fact, I believe on tomorrow, the school manager is going to make a statement based on her discussions with her with the parents and so forth of where they are. But I've had ongoing conversations with her. She has my personal number and she calls all the time. And some of the burdens, I'm going to be honest, that some of the burdens that I put on these school systems, they might not have the resources to meet. Therefore, it has been my recommendation, particularly for a hybrid school a year, that if you can't make some of these burdens, that it would behoove them not to have in-person school if they cannot make those burdens. Because once that is out of the box, you can't put it back in the box. So I would rather protect both the students and their family members. I think that's one of the things that the public, that we have to drive home to the public, that even if a child who is infected has mild symptoms, if there is somebody in the household of any advanced age, middle-aged, senior citizen, they're at much higher risk, and there's nothing you can do. I mean, these kids are still going to be able to transmit virus. So we have to think not only just of the kids at the school, but who they're going home to as well.
Okay. You said that's tomorrow?
I believe it's tomorrow.
You have a time on that?
It's at the meeting that the mayor's having tomorrow. I believe that's at 1:30.
Okay.
I just got a text too. Let's make sure that Thea Bowman is added to that list. I just got a text that they did not receive notification when the rest of the school was being talked about or met previously.
Mr. President.
Councilwoman Atkins.
Just in a response to the information that Dr. Walker did give us, earlier today, the council was sent CPO 2020-38, which spoke to an ordinance asking for us to approve the requiring of all personnel entering public spaces within the city of Gary to be required to wear masks. So I wanted to present to the council if we could suspend the rules and add this to the agenda to be approved on all 3 readings if possible.
And that's a motion?
Yes, I would like to motion.
Is there a
second?
It's been moved and properly seconded by Councilwoman Brown. Any questions or discussion?
I have a question. I have not seen it. 2020-38.
I did receive it. I don't know, Councilwoman Atkins, I think it was emailed around. Did everybody?
Yes, sir. So Councilman Lay, it was emailed to us today.
What time today? I was at the University of Chicago Hospital today. What time?
Yes, sir. So it was emailed today at 2:59. The sponsor listed is our Mayor Jerome Prince.
So it was sent out today at 2:59. I was still at the University of Chicago, so
Yes.
I didn't get it. Did Mr. Poe draft that ordinance?
Yes, he did.
I started asking him, if he send it to me, I will not be disturbed if it goes there, but I do have a problem on passing anything on all three readings where I've not seen it. And you would need my vote to do it on all three readings. So if he would send it to me, I'll take a look at it.
So I'm sorry, Mr. Lay, I didn't mean to cut you off, but Attorney Poe, the issue, you probably wasn't aware of this. Mr. Lay does not use his city email.
No, I do now. I do
do?
now, but but it has to come to my personal email. Here's the point. If you send it, if I don't get it, I will not vote in the affirmative to allow it to go on all thrhree readings.
So what email address do you want to send to? Because it was sent to you.
Okay, ARZZIE.
Okay, I got that one.
Send it.
Okay, we'll make sure you get it.
You're muted, Councilman Lay. Okay, so
Send it to me now. I will review it, and I will, make that determination whether I go on all three readings. You need my vote to consider that.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Attorney Williams?
Yeah, this time you can just proceed. You just need the majority vote to add it to the agenda. That will give Councilman Lay the time to read, and then on third and final, you can bring it back up.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just need to document.
Okay.
Absolutely. That means, Councilman Brewer, you got to take a long time asking questions. So there's sufficient time.
You take 3 hours because, again, it wasn't the questions. He made a report. I always thought the mayor had the chief report, but if somebody could send me the document, because you're asking for all three readings, ultimately I have to have it.
All right, so Councilwoman Atkins, you're going to take care of that. So it's been moved and properly seconded. Any other questions or discussion about 2020-38? This is the face mask wearing ordinance. Seeing and hearing none, this again is just to add it to tonight's agenda. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
You're
Councilman Weatherspoon,
muted, Councilman Weatherspoon.
Sorry about that. Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8-0.
With a vote of 8-0, CPO 2020-38 is added to our agenda this evening. Councilman Brewer.
That's all the questions I have at this time.
So now you're moving to Chief Evans?
Yes, if there's no other question from any council members, I'll move into Chief Evans at this time, our police chief. I do know there has been a tremendous amount of homicides that we have experienced and just violence in general that we have experienced inside the city. I made this request also at our last council meeting. And from that meeting up until now, I had the numbers and it went off my screen here. We have had a nice deal of homicides. One homicide is too many to have inside the city. But we have had several since our last council meeting. So I would like our police chief to chime in time with the discussion of public safety inside the city of Gary.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon.
All right. Thank you. And I appreciate the council allotting some time for me to address you. I will try to be as brief as I can, respecting the council's time in this most important meeting. But I want to thank you for allowing me to address you directly. Traditionally, new police administrations will brief the administration and the council in committee. But 2020 has been a very historic year that has changed all our lives. Not only are we in the midst of the global pandemic, which has affected us in ways that we could not have imagined just a few months ago, we're also in a big call for police reform, and both of which are historic and both of which are significant. Law enforcement has tides and ebbs and flows that it goes through all the time. When I came on the department in 1994, we were going through the O.J. Simpson trial, and that trial changed law enforcement forever by increasing the reliance on scientific evidence and decreasing the need or the reliance on witness-based evidence to secure the proper convictions for the proper people. And DNA exploded and lab use exploded. And now we have a time when that's just part of law enforcement. Everyone knows what DNA is. Everyone knows what crime scene investigators do, and it's important. And we're in a current time, we're in a time like that right now with the thing that happened in Minnesota, which this call for law enforcement reform didn't start there with the tragic death of Mr. George Floyd, but it is definitely was tipped off with that. We're in a time of change for our law enforcement community, and we must embrace it and really ride the wave and find out what will be new for us. So policing a city like ours requires constant adjustment to respond to the changing city landscapes. The projects and approaches that we use will change and evolve and reflect the challenges that a city like ours, which is the largest municipal landscape in Northwest Indiana, will have. Ensuring public safety is a core mission of every police department, trying to make sure citizens are safe. As you said, Councilman, so eloquently, one homicide, one shooting is one too many. And we have to look at the reasons that those occur. And they don't begin with law enforcement. And I'm not making excuses. I'm just pointing out facts. In America right now, we have something like 268 million registered firearms. We only have 260 million registered vehicles. So there are more guns in this country than there are vehicles. And as such, people are using gun violence for conflict resolution in ways we've never seen. Since COVID has began, we've seen an increase in gun sales throughout this nation, including Northwest Indiana. And we have a lot of guns out here with a lot of people, and we just have to deal with gun violence. And that's one of our core things. As the city landscapes has changed, the police department is going to utilize place-based, network-focused, problem-oriented solutions. What I mean by that, our department is now a department of 161 officers. We are a city of over 53 square miles. We have the largest land base in Northwest Indiana, and you contrast that with our neighbor, Hammond, which has 82,000 residents according to last census, but is only 25 square miles. They're less than half our size, but they have a lot less area to cover, and we have more, and they have more officers than we do. So we have to increase the integration of technology and technology-based crime-fighting solutions, such as camera pods, license plate readers, our e-ticket devices, which will not only save time so an officer can write whatever citation or city ordinance he can much more quickly and get back to work, but it will also be a very useful tool in this time of the global pandemic to limit the contact between the citizen and officer, which will protect both. Cameras are being obtained through our last grant with COVID. We have a license plate reader being obtained. So these are things that we have ongoing. We had a big camera program with our Gary Housing Department, and some of those cameras are not being utilized in the housing developments as they once were, as they've demolished and tore them down. But the cameras actually belong to the city, so we're going to redeploy those in certain parts of our city to have a camera pod system. A picture is worth 1,000 words, and it really can help us in solving some of our crimes, or at least give our investigators a direction in which they can go. We also need to increase our capacity, and what do I mean by that? Our capacities are what we can accomplish at a given time frame with the resources that we have, the personnel that we have on the street, and then our resources, which are the equipment that we have to achieve that goal, which are our cars, all the technology I spoke of. Both of these need to have an increase and an investment that we should probably speak about in committee. I'm also glad to announce that we're going to be doing in the fall an aggressive out-of-state plate enforcement. I spoke with Chief Mans this week of Griffith, and we spoke about it at length, and we probably will do something simultaneously. Griffith Police and Gary Police I'll try to loop in Chief Hajnicki, which I spoke to last year from Highland, and Chief Dowdy from Hammond. All of us have faced the same problem with the out-of-state plates, and we want to have aggressive enforcement. This will have to include, though, our school system and our large multi-dwelling housing complex for it to be successful. We don't have the authority to just pull a car over because it has out-of-state plates. That's illegal. That's a violation of your rights. You can go anywhere in this country without papers, and we don't have that ability. But when we do work with these other entities, we can get a location and maybe an address and do some enforcement on that end. In addition to that, I want to speak about some of the plans that we have to engage with the community, some of the positive things that we have to do. You have to do both. Our active engagement has to begin, I think, with our youth. We used to engage with them through athletic leagues, basketball, football, baseball. It's 2020 now. I've got a teenager at home. I've got 2 adult sons in their 20s. They play video games. So we want to start an active video game league or a way for our officers and youth to play video games together, either over the internet or in a way where they can engage with each other and just interact with one another. We want to also have a community group block club alliance meeting. We wanted to do that later this year, but because of COVID, we're going to have to delay that until we can all meet together. So we can have good information, share resource, put together a great communication scheme between all of us, where if we see something in particular communities and we need the community to give us anonymous tips where they can feel comfortable and safe, they can know who to contact and basically engage with us privately to help us. I can tell you that the cases that we have solved this year, the murders that we had in the past years, they've all been solved with community engagement and community involvement. It's no magic bullet that the police have to solve a crime. We need not only the scientific evidence, but also the community to engage with us and help us. In addition to those things, we're working with our a social group to talk about how we can maybe take law enforcement or lessen our profile when it comes to engaging with the mental illness or mentally ill or our drug addicted citizens, both of which are really healthcare issues, not crime issues. The activity associated with those becomes a crime, but if we can engage with them a little sooner with some other civic groups and some other social providers, we may be able to stem that tide and help get the person the type of health care and care that they need, rather than lock them up. You can't arrest your way out of either one of those. We also have a OPO program, which we've had for years, Operation Pullover Ticket and Ticket, but we're now actively doing love vouchers this year. So instead of pulling you over to give you a ticket, if we see that you have a car seat that's not actively working, or if you have a no car seat at all, we give you love vouchers. And that love voucher can be taken to any department that participates in the program. You can look at it on our Facebook page and find out where those departments are, and you can actually receive a car seat. We actually have quite a few car seats we're also going to be giving out. And Chief O'Donnell from the fire department started a training program to train his firemen to properly put the car seats in cars. You'll be surprised how difficult that can be to properly place a car seat securely in a vehicle in the right way. And the love voucher will allow a citizen to get a seat, and at no cost, which is very important. Let's talk about our numbers. So right now in 2020, we have 25 homicides for 2020. That's way too many. Last year at this time, we had 28. We have 78 non-fatal shootings. Last year at this time, we had 54. So while our homicide number is down, our non-fatal shooting numbers are up. And I don't have a good explanation for that. I can just say that right now, we're living in a time in America where I said that sometimes conflict resolution comes from a gun, and we begin after that crime is committed. Hopefully some of the things that we're going to institute will help us combat these things and address them more directly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. I believe you answered quite a bit and covered a lot of different ground. I know you've been on the department, you've been the deputy chief for a good while. This is your first role as being a chief, and you have always done a good job. You have always been one we can reach out to, and I look forward to continue to work with you in that capacity. But outside of the homicides and things of that nature that has been happening inside our city, you see a number of cars just driving through our city without stopping the stop sign, not stopping at lights. I even see them now just running lights on Broadway. There's just no respect for this community at all. And it's not in a certain area. it's throughout the city. I travel the city quite a bit throughout the daytime, and I see it constantly. Can you just address how we can assist as far as homeowners, businesses inside the city? A number of people have cameras and things of the nature where we can just assist in those areas there where the city is short on resources, which you're making an effort to do more, but the city is still short on resources.
That's a great question. I too have noticed, and all of us have noticed, the increased amount of traffic violations that have gone on all over. And I believe, and this is just my opinion, that is a result of the COVID, when everyone was off the street and the streets were very bare. Now people are coming out more. People are just driving like crazy. We also have quite a few number of out-of-state residents coming over here because they can't do everything that they want to do in Illinois. So we've already started our OPO program with two different things: Operation Pullover, Click It and Ticket, and our motorcycle enforcement. Motorcycle enforcement is very important right now. In the past week, we've had 2 motorcycle fatalities. One is ours, one was in Maryville, and both of them were due to excessive speed, and neither person who was riding the bike had a helmet. Our motorcycle enforcement is almost like the love voucher, where we give out information about safety, we advise the person about being safe, give a ticket if we need to, and we give a coupon that they can utilize to go buy safety equipment at a reduced cost. And that's very important. I forgot to mention that I did speak with Chief Catino, new Chief Catino in Maryville. We actually came on together at the same time. He was in 94, and so was I was, and he's reopening the north substation that they had at 53rd and Broadway in the plaza. He has offered, and I'm going to accept, that we can also utilize that station. Many people don't know where the border is. Our residents go to Maryville, their residents come here. We will utilize that station at no cost in some type of capacity. We have to work out the details, but he offered that and we accepted it. And we're going to strengthen our relationship. But you're absolutely right with the traffic enforcement. We're working on OPO. And if citizens want to assist, besides reporting it to dispatch, and I want to give that number out because I heard in a couple of meetings that people didn't know how to call the non-emergency number. You can call 219-660-0000. That's 219-660-0000. You don't have to give your name if you don't feel comfortable. You can just report the incident. In addition to that, we're encouraging all citizens to take part, if they can, in the Ring doorbell system or something similar. We've had very good success in prosecuting crimes for that. The homicide that we had in 2019 of the double homicide of the woman and child was solved using a Ring doorbell camera footage. And the great thing about that is you don't have to give us the data. We don't have to subpoena. You can take part in whatever companies you develop. If it's Ring, if it's another company, many of them have websites where you can just automatically upload your data without worrying about where it goes, and we can access that through the company without a subpoena, without a search warrant, and those are very effective. You'll be surprised that cameras are probably the most effective tool that can be utilized by the public in fighting crime and increasing safety.
Thank you, Chief. Mr. President, that's all the questions I have, and I do appreciate you, Chief, for coming on.
Thank you, Councilman Brewer, and thank you both to Dr. Walker and Chief Evans. Any other members for Special and Select?
Mr. President.
Councilwoman Atkins.
So I just wanted to start off on behalf of the 4th District. Definitely wanted to send sincere condolences to former Councilwoman Carolyn Rogers' family. Her longevity of leadership on the council, and as well as an employee of the Lake County government complex, definitely was not in vain. So it's an honor to be able to sit in the seat that was once held by her and try to take in stride what was initiated by her as we make sure that we try to make the 4th District a priority in the revitalization of the city of Gary. And I also wanted to give 2 announcements. Just wanted to reiterate, the 4th District is having a 4th District Bazaar on August the 8th. So if you are a small business or if you are a seller of goods, arts and crafts, please make sure that you reach out to us and participate in that event. The event will be located on 18th and Broadway, and it will start at noon. If you are interested in participating in the event, please contact my administrative assistant, who is Ms. Karen Lane, at 219-881-1315. And also I wanted to take a moment to remind our residents that there is importance in us filling out the census. I always say that those of us that are watching this event or watching the meetings who tune in are probably not the ones who have not filled out the census. So those of you who are tuning in, I encourage you to promote in this particular initiative to your neighbors, to your family members, so that we can close the gap. As of last week, Gary was trending towards 45% in terms of completion. So we have about a 55% gap that we need to make up. So just wanted to make sure that we reiterate the importance of that to our citizens within this city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Atkins. Any other members for special and select?
Mr. Chair,
Councilman Williams.
I'd like to announce the 6th District Community Forum, which will be Thursday, August 13th at 6 o'clock. It's a Zoom meeting. With special guests, Chief Brian Evans from the Police Department, Chief Sean O'Donnell from the Fire Department, Ms. Barbara from Public Works, Rachel Caesar from General Services, an associate or an affiliate from Redevelopment to discuss some programs with Harold Purtle cannot attend to Mildred Glenn from Code Enforcement. Contact number I would like to leave is 219 City Hall, 881-1315, extension 1.
Thank you, Councilman Williams. Any other members for special and select?
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Brown.
this is something that I need to address with the mayor when he gives his remarks. However, I did want to make mention of it. There was an event over at Tolston Park this past weekend. I don't know, hundreds of people, young men and young women, who were over in the park, who were having, I would say, a basketball tournament. They were having a basketball tournament. And I want to commend them on the job that they did in terms of cleaning up and taking care of that. But I need to speak to the mayor in regard to that, because I wanted to talk to him about over at Tolston, there are 50-gallon drums that they use for trash. And I noticed when I drive through Marquette Park, they have the blue garbage cans with the lids on them. So I want to talk to them or to the park department about receiving the same kinds of containers for Tolston Park. I mean, you know, they're gonna clean it up, but they don't have anywhere to put the debris. And when you put it in an open container, you have varmints or whatever pulling it out of the cans and strewing it all over the park. So I want to talk to the mayor about that, because not only that, there's been a concern that the nets have been removed. So I have to talk to the park department about that. But it was an excellent affair. I mean, it was, you know, there was no violence. It was just, and I know that there was no social distancing because it was full of people. However, I do want to have some discussion with the mayor regarding that affair. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilwoman Brown. Any other members for special and select? Well, let me just announce that a lot of us were out at Beyond Four Walls last Thursday. They had a fantastic food giveaway, over 200 boxes. They're going to continue that program through the month of August. They'll be out there again this Thursday, starting at 11 a.m. at 875 South Lake Street at Beyond Four Walls Church. Free food giveaway. There'll be up to 500 boxes. This is a program of the United States Department of Agriculture. So you want to get there, 11 a.m., 875 South Lake Street. I also wanted to announce, and we'll probably talk about it very soon in terms of the ordinance that's on the table, but Councilman Lay has agreed to lead, and I've asked him to do that, the PAGE program for the Gary Common Council. And this is a program that existed in another form in the late 90s. It was, from what I understand, very professionally run. Students got credit. And so I'm supporting Councilman Lay's endeavor to revamp that program and to do that in partnership with our local schools. So there will be more discussion of that down the road, but I did want to make everyone aware of that. And of course, you will get that in writing as well. That's the Gary Common Council PAGE program for our high school students.
Mr. President,
Councilman Lay?
for some reason, someone unmuted me. I can't speak now to this program. After you authorized me to proceed, I've done quite a bit of work and certainly would like to acknowledge certain people. We have all, and none of this will cost the council or any councilman, possibly other than myself, a dime. It's going to be done outside of coming back and asking you to provide money. One of the people I certainly have to say something about is the former school superintendent, Dr. Cheryl Pruitt. She has been very helpful, along with our chief of staff, Arlene Colvin, and in fact, Mr. Lloyd Keith. In terms of contributions, I called Attorney Williams to ask him to purchase a sweater. At this point, we're looking at sweaters. And before I could get it out, he volunteered to give us $500 in the program. What we'd have to do is to set up a fund in the general fund. That $500 would purchase all materials that the pages will need. Other people that have committed, and I want to give them credit now because they certainly have are going to invest and have agreed to invest. Lake County Councilman Charlie Brown has indicated he would buy a sweater. My pastor, I went to ask him where he got the sweaters. He agreed to buy 2. The mayor, Jerome Prince, has agreed to pay for 2. Gary Frontiers, I talked to Mr. Oliver Gilliam. They have agreed to pay for 1. Kyle Allen has agreed to pay for 1. Norman Bailey has agreed to pay for 1. Earl Harris Jr., who is a state representative, have agreed. As I said earlier, Attorney Renzo Williams has agreed to purchase all of the books. It came down to where we needed, since we're going to do most of this by Zoom, we're going to need, I'm going to say iPads or the computers. At this point, I talked to Mr. Mahone. One of the reasons we haven't put it all in writing, we have quite a bit in writing now, is we're also going to attempt to partner with Harvard University, which may seem to be strange to people. It's a lot easier to partner with Harvard University than it is IU Northwest. They're used to these types of programs, and I went there, and basically what I have to do is resubmit my credentials to Harvard, and they will decide if I'm capable of teaching these 9 students. I believe the answer to that will be yes. When it came down to the computers, I did talk to Mr. Mahone, who is the principal of Westside High School. He indicated that public school would in fact be able to provide, let's say, computers that the children or young people could take home. Ms. Colvin was supposed to talk to a school. She serves on the board of 21st Century. It's a charter school. So we're going to deal with the charter schools, the public schools, and in some cases, the private schools. Anyone that does not have a computer or access at home. I talked to Mr. John Keeler from Spectacle, and as usual, he has said, well, whatever I need to do, I will do. So the program is moving along very fast. The big issue left now, of course, is to get schools to provide to 9 students. Now, I've kept Councilwoman Linda Caldwell up to date in terms of everything that I've been doing. I talk to her almost constantly. One of the other things, if the council, and not only are we going to attempt to get them college credit, we will get them units of credit toward graduation from high school. We also want to narrow this to juniors and seniors, not age, not an age factor, but whoever's junior and senior. I had a conversation further with with Councilwoman Caldwell. If a council person wanted to submit a name of a person to participate in this program, we will teach them government from school board all the way up to the national government. And we also will teach them Robert Rules of Order. Those are some of the books coming in. But I think it's going to be a good program. And I had an extensive conversation with the mayor. And of course, he's going to be a resource person along with the governor, Pete Paskowski, and several others. And like I say, he has agreed to purchase 2 sweaters, and certainly I will hold him to that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman Lay. I will just conclude. I wanted to read the official citation of the Gary Common Council that was presented to the family of former Councilwoman Carolyn D. Rogers of the 4th District, and I will just read this. Official citation by the Gary Common Council, bereavement citation to the family of the Honorable Carolyn D. Rogers, 4th District Councilwoman, 2000 to 2019. Whereas the members of the Gary Common Council in the city of Gary, Indiana, express our sincerest condolences in the loss of a true trailblazer, civic leader, and commendable colleague, the Honorable Carolyn D. Rogers. Whereas at all times during her 19-year tenure with the Gary Common Council, Carolyn exemplified grace in her stature, the highest of integrity for the office she served, and a profound love for serving people. Whereas the life of the Honorable Carolyn D. Rogers, her virtue and civil service as the 4th District Councilwoman were reservedly and tirelessly rendered to the city of Gary in her leadership of the 4th District community. Whereas her ideals and legacy will live on in the hearts and minds of those who loved and respected her for the dedicated contribution she instilled for a better quality of life and representation for all Gary residents. Whereas we extend heartfelt sympathy to her beloved daughter, Ebony Miller, family members and friends, and pray for God's comfort and peace and the hope that her good contributions will follow her while she rests from earthly labor. Now, therefore, let it be known by the members of the Gary Common Council of the city of Gary, Indiana, that we humbly salute and posthumously honor our colleague, the Honorable Carolyn D. Rogers, for her remarkable accomplishments and outstanding leadership in municipal government. May her good works and acquiescent spirit abide forever. Carolyn was loving and kind in all her ways, so willing to help, so quick to praise, sincere and true in her heart and mind, beautiful memories she left behind. In testimony whereof, we have hereunto set our hands to this document in the city of Gary, state of Indiana, this 21st day of July, 2020. Thank you.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell.
I was unable to speak before you read the citation because I was muted. But am I to believe what I just got through hearing, that we're squashing the ordinance for the youth council, and we're just going to go ahead and make it a page? Because I just heard him say you gave him the okay. So you're overriding this ordinance?
No, the ordinance is still on the table, and I think that we can decide how we want to pursue it. I know that Councilman Lay and I did discuss this program, and I believe he discussed during the committee meeting this program as an alternative, but that doesn't mean that this particular ordinance can't go forward. I think he would likely have some things to say about it in light of his comments at the committee meeting.
Mr. President,
Councilman Lay?
I am positive every step of the way. I've talked to Councilwoman Caldwell. In other words, I asked her, in fact, to hold her ordinance in committee. In other words, if the council decides, and again, I had an extensive conversation with the mayor, if they decide that they believe that Mr. Bowles or Eric Patterson can duplicate what I just said, then fine, let's put it over there. But again, as I indicated to Ms. Caldwell, I'm willing to accept any recommendation. Well, let me go back and say this. I thought I had explained to her.
You have explained to me, but I'm just going by what I just heard from him.
Okay, well, let me clear it up, and then I'll say it. Whatever I said to you earlier and what I'm saying now, I didn't see the inconsistency. It may have been. What I'm suggesting is that the school system would, in fact, the school, and I'm talking about the private and the public and the charter, they would select students for the program. These students would be sent to the board and commission, which is under the direction of Councilwoman Caldwell. In other words, be based on advice and consent like the United States Senate. I'm sure everybody on the council know what I mean by advice and consent. If there's someone there that you want, you merely reject them and they would have to send someone else. I further went into it with her. If a member of the council wanted to select a person of their own, not one of the 9, and have them to audit what is being done, if they're juniors and seniors, I certainly can't just, although people have sent me texts from the administration saying they will buy sweaters since I made that presentation, then they can listen in. They will be given the number. I will attempt to teach them parliamentary procedure and as well as about government all the way up. So I'm now saying it can be as many as 18 people, but only 9 will I move forward to try to partner with Harvard and to get them credit. But the reason I asked her to leave it in the committee is a new ordinance was going to be prepared. I was going to ask the president to assign it to her committee. But again, I really am not tied into these things where if you want to go to Mr. Bowles or Mr. Eric Reeves, I assure you, their program cannot do this. We have the money. The council has nothing to pay. The council can select at least 9, and we will train them all. So I'm not sure I'm deviating that much. I'm just taking away from the city. In other words, the initial council page program, which was a copy initially of the state back in '98, did not require the mayor. Here, the mayor has agreed. We had an extensive conversation about 3 subjects. I believe it was Saturday, over an hour, including what's going to come up later on the agenda that I was just sent the ordinance on. So again, the council will have an opportunity to look at it. You remember I asked Mr. Brewer for someone to come forward and explain the present program. I'm now in this program, the council is appointing all pages, none by the mayor, none by the clerk, none by the judge. So if people don't want to have all, then again, a lot of things are said and done I'm a little bit confused about. But it will come to Ms. Councilwoman Caldwell if the president does what I asked him, what I basically asked him to do, was to send a new ordinance. It's being prepared now. And it's going to come over. If she likes her ordinance or the council, I will be voting for the one we're preparing. I will be voting for this page program, not the other one at all. I don't understand the other one, but I'm sure majority of the council may.
All right. Thank you, Councilman Lay. Any others for special and select? All right, let me just say I did neglect.
I'm sorry, there's one other thing I should have said. I'm sorry. A good friend of mine, I went across this country with him, Reverend C.T. Vivian. Matter of fact, I was special assistant to Reverend Vivian in a think tank, and I was vice president. I ran the think tank back when, oddly enough, I was 28 years of age. And something occurred one time. CT was a very unique individual. He walked into my office and he said, let's go to Atlanta for a meeting of the Institute of the Black World. So I knew he was chairman of the Institute of the Black World, so we went down there. And after I sat down, it just didn't seem that it was a meeting of the Institute. And I received a note, which I wish I had, from Andy Young, telling me I had to leave the meeting. And of course, I did. But we lost a giant. And I even talked to him the day that President Obama gave him the Medal of Freedom, which I think was in 13. But you really have lost a tremendous person. He was 95 years of age, and he stayed in Atlanta. And he's been to Gary. He came to Gary one time to marry me, but he's been to Gary several times, and each time we would have, after the Strategy Center was closed, we'd have these long conversations. And people ask me who was a person who's been somewhat a mentor to me. It was, one of them is Reverend Dr. C.T. Vivian. Thank you. Sorry it took so long.
No, very, very well worth the time. Thank you, Councilman Lay. I neglected to assign CPO 2020-38, the mask ordinance, which we added to the agenda tonight. And so I'm going to assign that to the Public Safety Committee. Councilman Williams. This is CPO 2020-38.
Okay. I'm Mr. Poe, is Rodney still on with us?
Yes, sir.
Have you sent that ordinance to everyone? I haven't seen it pop up on my phone yet. Do I have it?
Yes, you should. I'll resend it again now. It did go out about 2:59 this afternoon, but I will send it again right now. Do any of the other council members need the ordinance? Councilman Williams, I'm going to send it to both the city and the other email that I have for you.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, Caldwell,
Councilwoman Caldwell,
I was asking, would he send it to me also?
did you get that, Mr. Pohl?
Yes.
Okay, Councilwoman Caldwell. Has it been sent?
I'm sending it right now.
Okay. So as I indicated, CPO 2020-38 has already been added to tonight's agenda. And so I'm assigning it to the Public Safety Committee. And so it's in your hands, Councilman Williams.
Give me a second. I haven't received the ordinance yet. I'm still looking for it.
Okay.
And we are going to review this and pass it with plans tonight, or sit into committee.
I believe that's the indication. Councilwoman Atkins made a motion, and I think she indicated that she would like to attempt to pass it on all three readings. At this time, we're just assigning it to the committee. We've already added it to the agenda on first reading, and so now we're just going through the committee assignment process.
Okay. All right. I move for passage. Well, we're going to assign it to the Public Safety Committee first, correct?
Right.
Okay, I just got it. We're talking 2038, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Ms. Mask?
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
if you mind, if I can take this and assign it to the committee until you get your documents together?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay,
Let me mute myself for a second. I need to print this.
okay. Mr. President, the Public Safety Committee had before 2020-38. I approve this to be reporting out. Councilman Williams and Councilman Godwin.
Yes.
Councilman Williams?
All right.
A majority of the Public Safety Committee has approved CPO 2020-38 to be reported out.
Thank you, Council Members Brewer and Williams. Okay. At this time, we're going to have council pending ordinances and resolutions on third and or final reading.
CPO 2020-30, an ordinance of the Gary Common Council creating the City of Gary Youth Council, sponsored by Linda Barnes Caldwell, Councilwoman of the 5th District.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell.
I request that CPO 2020-30 go back to committee.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and properly seconded by Council Members Lay and Mary Brown. Any questions or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8-0.
With a vote of 8-0, CPO 2020-30 is referred back to the Boards and Commissions Committee.
CPO 2020-31, an ordinance establishing new funds and budgets for the Safe and Thriving Communities Grant, sponsored by Mayor Jerome Prince, City of Gary.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Brown.
I move for passage of CPO 2020-31 on third and final reading.
Is there a second? It's been moved and properly seconded by Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell. We'll have the overview at this time by the Chief of Staff.
Thank you, Mr. President. CPO 2020-31 is an ordinance that establishes a budget, a 2020-2021 budget for the Safe and Thriving Communities Grant, which is a grant that is designed to stem violence and reduce youth offending and victimization, and to enhance public safety. There's an amount of $67,177 to be appropriated in the budget. And I ask that the council approve the budget as we have submitted, as amended.
Thank you, Attorney Colvin. Any questions for Attorney Colvin? Seeing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mr. President, is there an amendment to this?
Councilwoman Brown, are you aware of any amendment?
It was in the committee, and I
Okay.
think I sent it to you, Clerk.
Yes, you did. I'm sorry, Mr. President. I move to amend by substitution CPO 2020-2031.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded to amend by substitution CPO 2020-30. Any questions or discussion?
31.
31?
I'm sorry, CPO 2020-31. Any questions or discussion? Hearing and seeing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8-0.
With a vote of 8-0, CPO 2020-31 is amended by substitution. We've already had a motion and a second to pass the matter. Any questions or discussion about CPO 2020-31 as amended? Seeing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8-0.
With a vote of 8-0, CPO 2020-31 as amended passes and is so ordered.
CPO 2020-33, an ordinance revising 2020 appropriations for the Police Department operating budgets, Fund 220, Fund 227, Fund 254, Fund 710, and Fund 725 for the fiscal year beginning January the 1st, 2020, ending December 31st, 2020, sponsored by Mayor Jerome Prince, City of Gary.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Brown.
I move for passage of CPO 2020-33 on third and final reading.
Second.
Been moved and properly seconded. We have the overview at this time.
And Mr. President, there's an amendment on this one as well that we heard in committee.
Okay, sorry. I got 36, I'm sorry. Okay, Mr. President, I move to amend by substitution CPO 2020-33.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded by Councilman Barnes Caldwell to amend by substitution CPO 2020-33. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8-0.
With a vote of 8-0, CPO 2020-33 is amended by substitution. We've already motioned and had a second on the ordinance. Any questions or discussion or an overview at this time?
Okay. Mr. President.
Thank you.
Okay. CPO 2020-33 is an ordinance establishing budgets for several police department budgets, such as the Law Enforcement Training Fund, confiscated cash, asset forfeiture. The funds are going to be used for either supplies and general operating expenses in the department, also for garage supplies and lubricants for some of the police vehicles. 710, which is the confiscated cash fund, funds are being appropriated to process court cases where fees are returned or confiscated items are returned. 725 is for equipment for the department, and 227, which is the training fund, is being appropriated for training for law enforcement officers. So I'm asking that the council approve these budgets.
Thank you, Attorney Colvin. Any questions or discussions for Attorney Colvin or on this ordinance as amended by substitution? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8-0.
With a vote of 8-0, CPO 2020-33 as amended passes and is so ordered.
CPO 2020-34, an ordinance establishing the JAG grant budget for the fiscal year 2020, sponsored by Mayor Jerome Prince, City of Gary.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Brown,
I move for passage of CPO 2020-2034 on third and final reading.
is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded by Councilwoman Atkins. We'll have the overview at this time.
Mr. President, this is an ordinance for the police department establishing a budget for a justice assistance grant that will be used to purchase SWAT equipment as well as furniture and other necessary items at the Gary Police Department. And I'm requesting that the council approve these budgets.
Thank you, Attorney Colvin. Any questions for Attorney Colvin or on this ordinance as amended? No, on this ordinance, we didn't amend it. I don't see anyone with any questions. Of course, we already discussed this in committee. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8-0.
With a vote of 8-0, CPO 2020-34 passes and is so ordered.
CPO 2020-36, an ordinance advising the Indiana Department of Corrections grant budget for the fiscal
35.
Include skip 35.
Yeah.
Yep.
CPO 2020-35, an ordinance revising the STD grant budget for the fiscal year beginning April 1st, 2020, ending March 31st, 2021, sponsored by Mayor Jerome Prince, City of Gary.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Brown,
I move for passage of CPO 2020-2035 on third and final reading.
Second.
it's been moved and properly seconded by Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell. We'll have the overview at this time.
Mr. President, 2020-35 is an ordinance reviving the budgets for the Gary Health Department's STD grant for the purchase of equipment, namely computers and laptops. I'm requesting that the council approve the ordinance.
Any questions or discussion for Attorney Colvin? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8-0.
With a vote of 8-0, CPO 2020-35 passes and is so ordered.
CPO 2020-36, ordinance advising Indiana Department of Corrections grant budget for the fiscal year beginning November 1st, 2019, ending October 31st, 2020, sponsored by Mayor Jerome Prince, City of Gary.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Brown,
move for passage of CPO 2020-2036 on third and final reading.
Second.
been moved and properly seconded by Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell. We'll have the overview at this time.
Mr. President, this ordinance 2020-36 revises the Indiana Department of Corrections grant budget for the Commission for Women's Department. They are appropriating $5,000 for the purchase of refrigerators and stoves for the shelter.
Thank you, Attorney Colvin. Any questions or discussion about this ordinance? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8-0.
With a vote of 8-0, CPO 2020-36 passes and is so ordered. Earlier this evening, we added CPO 2020-38 to the agenda. Please correct me, Attorney Williams, if this is the incorrect point, but I think we would now entertain a motion to suspend the rules to pass CPO 2020-38 on all three readings. Is that the correct procedure, Attorney Williams?
That's correct.
Thank you. Is there a motion to pass CPO 2020-38 on all three readings?
President,
Councilwoman Atkins?
I would like to make the motion to approve CPO 2020-38, on all three readings.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded by Councilwoman Brown and Councilman Brewer. I guess we'll have an overview at this time by Councilwoman Atkins. I think you're a sponsor of it.
I'm not.
Oh, I thought you were. Okay.
No.
Mr. Pohl, do you want to give the overview? All right.
Yes, I could provide the overview. This is what would be considered the face covering ordinance. The face covering ordinance is obviously in response to the COVID-19 global pandemic that's currently going on. You guys had heard, the honorable council members had heard earlier from Dr. Walker, and I think it was very important that he had pointed out the effectiveness of masks and face coverings, as he had stated in particular as it pertained to, for example, the students that were going to be returning to schools. The ordinance lays out in the whereas section the current stats that pertain to the confirmed cases and the amount of deaths that are throughout the different categories: the United States, the state of Indiana, Lake County, and the city of Gary. One of the important things that I think that's pointed out in the whereas section as well is the governor's declared public health emergency by executive order on March 6th of this year, 2020. In the governor's order, he had indicated that the cities could be more restrictive than the orders of the executive order of the governor as well. Therein lies the authority of the council to essentially regulate some of these masks. The masks mandates, or is what they're being called. As of, I think, yesterday, July 20th, 2020, you had the Lake County Health Department that also issued an order that applies to all Lake County municipalities except for Gary and East Chicago, because we, for example, have our own health department that would require all persons that are inside businesses or other indoor public spaces to wear a mask or face covering that would cover the mouth and the nose to stop the emission of droplets, which essentially helps stop the spread of COVID-19. As such, this ordinance seeks to basically follow suit for the city of Gary. What this ordinance mandates would be that all persons in enclosed places that are open to the public and city buildings within the city of Gary, they're going to be required to wear face coverings or masks that completely conceal the nose and the mouth to prevent those droplets from emitting from their nose or mouth at all times when social distancing of at least 6 feet cannot be maintained. There are, in the second paragraph of Article 1, there are the exceptions for that mandate. That would include individuals that are under the age of 2, that are incapacitated, or individuals that cannot remove a mask without assistance. The ordinance authorizes the Gary Police Department, the Health Department, and code enforcement inspectors to enforce the ordinance if necessary. The Gary Police, it also authorizes the Gary Police to expel a person from city-owned property if the person fails to comply with the ordinance. It authorizes owners and managers of public places or establishments to have the authority to expel persons from public places or their establishments if the person fails to comply with the face covering requirement. It requires managers or owners of public places, establishments to place in a conspicuous location a sign that notifies individuals of the face covering requirement. And then it also allows the ordinance to be enforced by a ordinance violation, punishable by fines. Businesses that don't follow the ordinance, it authorizes the zoning administrator to be able to revoke the license, the general business license of the business that fails to comply if there is more than one violation for that business and failing to comply with the ordinance. Lastly, the ordinance, because this is basically applicable, and I guess really the spirit of this ordinance is to apply only during the public health emergency. It provides for the different I guess triggering events when the ordinance would terminate. So that would be either by passage of a resolution of this council declaring that the ordinance shall no longer be enforced, an executive order of the mayor declaring that face masks are no longer required as determined by the Gary Health Commissioner, or upon the declaration of the governor that the COVID-19 public health emergency has ended. So that's essentially and then ultimately that the ordinance would be effective immediately.
Thank you, Mr. Pohl. Any questions or discussion, Mr. Pohl or others, on this ordinance?
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Atkins?
just a point of reference for the public. I'm not sure if Attorney Pohl said this in the overview, but Dr. Walker surely did. The reason for the extent of this particular ordinance being placed at this time is due to the influx and the increase of cases. Lake County, Indiana was trending down, even the city from my understanding, but more recently, we have actually shown an increase in numbers. So we had got to a point where on a daily basis, we were in the single digits of cases arising. But I believe from my understanding, we recently have taken a turn back upward. And so that is the reason that this administration is asking the council to consider this ordinance. More importantly, as a council, it is our duty to make sure that we do what we can in terms of supporting the benefits of all residents of this city. And so this is also in support of what is in place from the Lake County standpoint and also our neighbors in Chicago. I was at a meeting in Chicago earlier today. You can't even step inside of a restaurant without a mask on. So just in terms of some frame of reference, to the extent that we need to go towards so that we can do our part in terms of shipping the curve for COVID-19.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I did have a couple of questions.
Councilman Lay?
Attorney Pohl, will there be a uniform posting of that they must, by the city, that they have to wear these masks? Must have the mask to enter? Will there be a uniform posting?
This ordinance doesn't provide for it, but that's actually a very good idea. And I mean, I would volunteer my services to put together that posting if it pleased the council.
Well, I had a long conversation with the mayor about several ordinances on July the 18th. You mentioned the word fine. You didn't mention how much.
It would be the general fines that are applicable under section 1-7 of the Gary Municipal Code. So just for reference, the Gary Municipal Code has certain fines that are defined by a schedule of fines. Everything else is basically applicable under section 1-7, which is a fine to be determined by the court from anywhere from $0 to $2,500 for the first offense or $7,500 for a subsequent offense. Obviously, in this instance, and much like all the other ordinances that we regulate, we do not always just hammer somebody with a $2,500 violation, just because they violated the ordinance. Most of the time, the judges will impose maybe a $50 fine or something of that nature. It's determined on a case-by-case basis, though, when it falls under Section 1-7.
I think you should probably take a look at that. I don't believe the court's jurisdiction exceeds 6,000. I don't think you can go to 7,500. Let me ask another question so I'm clear. And like I said, I had an extremely long conversation with the mayor. We agreed at the end of the telephone conversation. I just want to make sure the writing is the same. If a person is just walking down the street, can they be stopped by this ordinance and in any way fined or any kind of sanctions?
No, this applies to only enclosed places. So what the objective of this ordinance would be to ensure that businesses that allow or that have indoor facilities that people are going into, particularly in the summer right now, where air conditioning is being run, air is being circulated within inside of a building. That is what this ordinance is really targeting, is the indoor facilities.
Now, one last question. When he and I talked, will you be notified? In other words, we're going to, I assume, pass this on all three readings. But as I understand, it's effective tomorrow. Is that correct?
It's effective immediately. That's correct.
Okay, tomorrow, immediately, tonight. When will the business be given an opportunity to be posted? I'm not going to mention the name of the business, but I walked into a business yesterday. Nobody other than me was wearing a mask. There was no posting on the door that you had to wear the mask. I will be more than happy to, once we're offline, to tell you where that business is located, because I did suggest to them that it would be necessary for them to require the customer to wear the mask. So I'll give you that. But somehow we got to tell them or notify them very quickly, because all businesses are not posted that way. That's why I asked for uniform posting.
Absolutely, and I'll definitely make sure to work with the mayor in order to and zoning and see what lists we can get together of what contact information for a lot of these businesses to get it out as soon as possible, as well as press releases and posting obviously the stuff online on our website. As far and wide as possible, because this is obviously a very, very serious issue.
Oh, I agree. What about the availability of masks? Will these masks be made available by government? In other words, if they want to enter and I think in most cases the public buildings now, let's say they wanted to enter the public safety building, would they then be provided a mask? There are some people that cannot afford to buy these masks. I don't know how to go about getting them. Would they be given a mask as they enter the building?
I know that we've discussed this with, I think Dr. Walker had discussed this earlier on, where he's looking at the availability of masks right now. I know that we've had this discussion with with human resources within the city buildings. There is obviously an issue with access to government services, and we would want to ensure that just because somebody didn't have a mask, they weren't going to be appropriately that they wouldn't be appropriately provided services. For example, I know that the police department is already providing masks at the public safety building, so I would think, I'm fairly certain that we are covered, but it is a conversation that I definitely will bring up with the different government facilities, just to ensure that we're not denying anybody for, the lack of ability to have a, to have a mask. This is more geared towards the, individuals that are failing to, or not failing, but unwillingly complying with the ordinance.
Right. The mayor and I had I made a recommendation. We seem to have agreed somehow. he had masks that was left over from Mr. Wilson, and he may acquire some others, but certainly I think that these masks must be made available, certainly for sure at all public buildings, if you're going to restrict the access.
Yes, yes.
And
Thank-
we have
thank
been
you,
making them
thank you, Mr.
available,
President.
Attorney Lay.
I'm sorry?
We've been making them available to the
Right.
other city facilities, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I have a couple questions as it relates to the expiration of this. Page 3, Section 8, paragraphs A and C. It says that a passage of a resolution of this council declaring that this ordinance should no longer be enforced. So shouldn't it be an ordinance, or we would repeal this ordinance? It wouldn't seem that a resolution would be sufficient to declare the ordinance to no longer be enforced.
Well,
Would we be in fact repealing this ordinance to make it no longer enforceable?
that's a very, very good question. And the reason that I crafted it as such was basically to kind of, we don't know how long COVID-19 is going to go on. And to repeal an ordinance, to, maybe have to, again, reinstitute it again, to repeal it again. The way that I looked at this would be, if by a passage of a resolution, it didn't have the same effect. It essentially, put it on, how should I say this? It seemed as if that would be an announcement from the council that this is no longer a public health emergency that would require the enforcement of the ordinance, as opposed to a full-on repeal. Then later on, if we had to reinstitute the ordinance again or reenact the ordinance again. However, I mean, this is obviously a decision that the council could make. I just wanted to ensure, or to explain why I had crafted that as such.
Mr. President,
Councilman Lay?
I agree with you. We get in these arguments. If it's in there by an ordinance, we should repeal it by an ordinance. If we can pass it on all three readings creating the law, we certainly can pass on all three readings repealing the law, because it would no longer be needed. So I believe it should be, as you suggested, a repeal by ordinance. We get rid of the law that way, not with a resolution. Because that's the way we're creating it. And I think that would be consistent for filing also. So I think that portion should, wherever you have this resolution, and I tried to read it from a telephone, but I couldn't see it all. And I thank you, Mr. Poe, for sending it ahead of everyone else. But no, I think it absolutely should be ordinance. And
Okay.
like I said, it'd be easy to repeal it on all three readings.
And just thank you, Councilman Lay. And just lastly, just for my own clarification, 8C says that it could also be expire if the governor declares that the COVID-19 public health emergency has ended. And my question is, what does that look like? For example, right now, his order, as I understand it, has been extended through early August. So if for some reason it's not extended beyond early August, and does that mean this ordinance is no longer in existence?
Yeah, the way that the reasoning here was that essentially the spirit of this ordinance came from the idea that there was a public health emergency that had to be addressed. Therefore, if the public health emergency was declared expired, then the need for the masks would essentially, or the authority essentially would expire with that. Being that this ordinance, the authority from that executive order, which stated that the cities could regulate in a more stringent way than the governor had ordered. So that was why I had included that. But again, if the council would prefer that this would only be repealable by the council, I have no problems changing that. I mean, it makes sense. So,
Mr. President,
I guess Councilman Lay.
I agree with you. We should strike that. What about the governor? In other words, we can do the necessary research, either through a member of the council or our attorney Williams. So again, since it's our law, we should be the one to decide it is no good, based upon our research and based upon notification from the governor. And that way it's crystal clear we have repealed it. In other words, let all of the repeal be in the council, nowhere else.
So that will raise a question with Section 8, Part B as well, right?
Well, whatever the president has mentioned, I think I'm agreeing with them. I'm saying strike the one
President
where.
is B. So President Godwin.
Yeah, so it says, B says an executive order of the mayor declaring that face masks are no longer required as determined by the Gary Health Commissioner.
Strike that one.
Right. So I think that basically the ordinance functionally would end by our own repeal of it, since this is not something we plan on doing for the next 100 years. Or I suppose if we were superseded by an order of the governor, right, to say that we didn't have the authority to regulate businesses and people in this way, should his executive order stop or he issues some different order. So I think it would stop by our action or by an action of a power higher than us as it relates to it. So I think we should perhaps just strike paragraph 8 altogether, which has these 3 scenarios in which the ordinance would expire. What are your thoughts on that, Mr. Pohl? You drafted it.
No, I don't disagree. I think if that is the pleasure of the council, I think that is, it's I think that's a good understanding of the ordinance, how it would work. Any ordinance can be repealed upon 3 readings of the council, as Councilman Lay had pointed out. So, yeah, I mean, when you break it down like that, I mean, it becomes a superfluous section of it. So, I mean, if the council's pleasure is to strike all of 8, I have no issue with that whatsoever.
Well, it looks like we're going to have to, if we intend to pass it on all 3 readings, we're going to have to entertain a verbal.
Mr. President, one other thing I would like to ask, I know it was brought up by Councilman Lay about the timing of this and getting notifications out to the business. I would just ask that this ordinance is not taking place to this Friday. That way you're getting plenty of notice out that this is a new law that the council has put in place. The mandate is already out by the mayor. People are aware of it, but when you talk about the fine part of it, I believe it puts all parties on guard what they need to do.
So we would say that the effective date would be Friday, July 24th.
That's part of the motion, yes.
So perhaps I think we should entertain a motion to strike paragraph 8 of this ordinance. I'm going to get in trouble. And insert Friday, July 24th, 2020 in place of immediately under Article 2 effective date. And really, that shouldn't be Article 2, that should be Article 3.
Yep.
Because Article 2 is severability.
Yep.
So.
Moved, Mr. President.
It's been moved and properly seconded by Councilman Brewer to make the aforementioned changes to this ordinance. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8-0.
With a vote of 8-0, CPO 2020-38 is amended, as aforementioned. And I will just request that Mr. Pohl, assuming this passes on all 3 readings, once this ordinance as amended is finalized, that it be circulated to all the council members. And I will sign it within a 24-hour period after that circulation. And I will entertain any questions or concerns that people have about the way in which the document was amended vis-a-vis our verbal understanding this evening. So it's been moved and properly seconded to pass CPO 2020-38 now as amended. I think we've already had an overview. Any questions or discussion about passing this on all 3 readings? As a reminder, this requires a unanimous vote, which would mean 8 votes of those who are present this evening in order for it to pass on all 3 readings. Any questions or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8-0.
With a vote of 8-0, CPO 2020-38 as amended passes on all 3 readings and is so ordered.
No, Mr. President, all we did was authorize it to be on all 3 readings. You now have to ask for a vote on the ordinance itself as amended. But you didn't.
Okay. Okay. Attorney Williams, that's what I'm supposed to do? Just confirming?
Yes, because the first vote was to make the additions and subtractions, so yes. Now
So we've already voted on amending it.
That's
And
correct.
I believe we just voted on approving it as amended, right?
No, you voted to pass on all 3 readings, which requires the unanimous vote. Now you're going to vote on the actual ordinance.
Thank you for clarification. So,
All right.
and thank you, Councilman Lay. So, is there a motion to pass CPO 2020-38 on all 3 readings as amended? It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded by Councilwoman Atkins. Questions or discussion? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8-0.
With a vote of 8-0, CPO 2020-38 as amended passes on all 3 readings and is so ordered.
CPO 2020-37, an ordinance amending Title 15 entitled Land Use, Chapter 123 entitled Zoning Code of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Gary, Indiana. Petitioner, Payday Group Check and Real Estate Incorporated, 5700 Melton Road, Gary, Indiana, property 617 West Ridge Road, Gary, Indiana.
Councilman Brewer.
Mr. President, I would ask if we can do all the planning and development all together. If there's no objection by any council members.
Yes, sir.
So that would be 2020-39 and 2020-09.
That's correct.
Yes.
CPO 2020-39, an amendment to the Community Benefits Agreement Ordinance, sponsored by Councilman Corey Lay and Mayor Jerome Prince, City of Gary.
Did we get all of them?
And CPR 2020-09, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Gary regarding climate resilience and recovery, sponsored by Mayor Jerome Prince, City of Gary.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Mr. President, the Plan Development Committee has before 2020-3709 and CPR 2020-39. That's CPR or CPO?
CPO.
CPO 2020-39. It's going to the Plan Development Committee. That will be July the 28th at 5:30 p.m.
Thank you, Councilman Brewer. It's been moved and properly seconded
Mr. President,
Councilman Barnes Caldwell?
boards and commissions needs to come back to a committee meeting on the 28th of July. What time is your meeting, Councilman Brewer?
Let me finish up. We didn't do a vote on
Yeah,
that.
we need to vote on, we need to vote on those.
So
So
let me rephrase my motion there. Make a motion to move CPO 2020-3739 and CPO 2020-09 to the Planning and Development Committee. That will be July the 28th at 5:30 p.m. That's my motion.
thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and properly seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8-0.
With a vote of 8-0, CPO 2020-37, CPO 2020-09, and CPO 2020-39 pass on second reading with a Planning and Development Committee meeting to be held on July 28th, 2020 at 5:30 p.m. via Zoom. Councilman Williams. I'm sorry. Madam Clerk, you can proceed. I'm sorry.
CPR 2020-08, a resolution by the Gary Common Council calling on Indiana Governor Eric J. Holcomb to initiate a more robust and compassionate program for the early release of non-violent incarcerated persons for vulnerable persons most vulnerable to the COVID-19 pandemic. Sponsored by Cozy Weatherspoon, Councilman of the 2nd District, White Williams, Councilman of the 6th District.
President,
Councilman Williams.
I move to set a public hearing for CPR 2020-8 at 6 o'clock, July 28th at the Clear Western Lounge.
Okay, it'll probably be via Zoom.
Via Zoom, yes, sir. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, via Zoom.
All right, thank you, sir. It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded by Councilman Brewer. Any questions or discussion? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes. Yes.
Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8-0.
With a vote of 8-0, CPR 2020-08 passes on second reading with a Public Safety Committee hearing to be held on July 28th, 2020 at 6 o'clock p.m. via Zoom.
Mr. President, is pending ordinance and resolutions on second reading.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. At this time, we will have our mayor's report. I'm sorry, Councilman Barnes Caldwell.
Boards and commissions needs to have a committee meeting July the 28th at 6:30 on ordinance CPO 2020-30. And I just have a question on that, because our last committee meeting, we were supposed to come back and bring all the paperwork. And I'm just really confused right now because I heard it come out of your mouth that you gave Councilman Lay the go ahead to write a new ordinance. Did I hear that wrong?
Yes, you heard it wrong.
Did I? Okay.
I was gonna, whatever we do, President Godwin, after I called him and indicated I would attempt to set up a page program that may be considered better. And I mentioned that in the first meeting. I had a long conversation with the mayor. He understood what was going on. I had a similar conversation with the chief of staff. What I'm going to bring is a recommendation back to you. I'm not sure why that's being lost here.
I
back to
don't know, because that's what I heard, Councilman Lay, but we were supposed.
No, I told you it's coming back to you, ma'am. It's coming back to you. It's going to come on the 28th. There's no ordinance here. We don't have an ordinance. I'm going to come back and suggest a change. If you and the council decide you don't want these students taught Robert Rules of Orders, taught about government, participatory government, where they get credit for attending the program, both at the state level and possibly, if not college credit, they will receive a certificate from a university, then we won't do this one. We will allow what we're doing now to stay in place. What they're doing now, I do not understand. The only thing I've ever heard it is being coordinated. I assume maybe something that Mr. Booz or Mr. Reed, they're teaching them something. That's the only difference. They would still be part of the council. Currently, it's going to be very difficult for them to attend meetings if we're doing it by Zoom. As I indicated, they would be asked, their schools would be asked respectively to provide computers so they could participate in Zoom meetings, if this is what the council desires. If they do not have computers, then as I indicated, Spectacle, I've talked to Mr. Keeler, he said he would assist me in getting the ones that don't have computers. We're talking about 9. But whatever is done is going to come back to you crystal clear. That's why I asked you to hold that ordinance in the committee. I'm only going to bring back a recommendation. Whatever is done, and more, I think the council set that other one up, trying to set it up off of what I had done before, and they made a lot of mistakes in terms of they allowed the mayor to have an appointment. He does not seem to necessarily desire this appointment over the clerk, the judge. So again, and I also have discussed this program with the judge. I believe she is favorable toward what I'm talking about. But again, ultimately, the council is going to vote. You're going to get an opportunity to decide, boards and commissioners, if you're going to accept student aid. If you don't accept student aid from, let's say, West Side, then you would reject and tell West Side or request they send another respective students. So he never suggested me creating an ordinance. He suggested, after I asked him now, I asked to do this. But again, if the council right now don't think it's worth getting these students high school credit in government and or getting them possible college credit and go back to what you have now, that's fine. That'll save me a lot of time. It's a great deal of effort has been put in and a great deal more effort. We're going to do this through Zoom. We're going to put it on channel 4. We're going to put it on channel 21. They will have an opportunity to engage in conversation with the mayor, Representative Earl Harris. Further, I'm positive I can get the governor of this state to Zoom with them. So that's why I wanted to get back to you, and I will explain it again and get you what I would hopefully you would agree to, at least at the committee level. If you don't, then, so I wasted a little time. So that don't bother me. But I'm not trying to create an ordinance, nor have I in any way suggested that your committee is not still in charge of the PAGE program. In no way. So again, if the council don't want to consider what is coming to them, I think that does not make sense. You can always reject it. You really can. You can reject it. But just nothing but, if we don't do nothing else but teach them but parliamentary procedures, I think that will benefit these 9.
Mr. President.
Councilman Brewer.
And this is for Mr. Lay and Councilman Lay and Councilwoman Caldwell. Maybe it's possible that we can have this discussion during the committee when we're talking about the youth council, and maybe we can do a merger of the 2 together, because both of them sounds good, what the youth council stands for and what Mr. Lay is presenting. I think it's a good opportunity to possibly do a merge of the two and get everything everybody wants to happen here.
Well, then someone else will have to do you will have to do the teaching, Mr. Brewer. It's a different program now.
Okay.
The mayor, wait a minute. The mayor is over youth program at this
Well,
point.
I'm just saying, let's just have a discussion inside committee.
That's what I suggested.
Okay.
That's what I said.
Yeah,
It's
July
gonna come.
28th at 6:30.
All right. Is there a second? Is that a second, Councilwoman Brown?
Yes.
All right. So it's been moved and properly seconded by Councilwoman Brown. Again, this is for a boards and commission meeting to discuss CPO 2020-30 at 6:30 p.m. on July 28th via Zoom. Any questions or discussion? All right. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
You're muted.
You're muted. Yep.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8-0.
With a vote of 8-0, CPO 2020-30 will be considered in the Boards and Commissions Committee meeting on July 28th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. via Zoom. All right. I think that concludes our council pending ordinances and resolutions on second reading. At this point, we will have our mayor's report.
The mayor is not present tonight, but I do have a few announcements. And first of all, I'd just like to say, Councilwoman Brown, the issues that you raised about Tolliston Park and the containers and the nets, I will make sure that I follow up on those for you and get back to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I just wanted to say for the public's benefit, because I know that the council already knows this, but we have a new fire station in the Glen Park area, and I know that the residents of the 6th District are very happy because they've not had a fire station in that area in a number of years. So they had the, I'll say, grand opening for that this past Friday. That's a very good event for the city. The city is also in the process of actually submitting its 2020 action plan for its community development, home, and emergency solutions grant funding, which is a little over $4 million. It goes to HUD within the next week or so, and we'll be coming to the council probably by the end of August with budgets for those particular programs. And I'd also just like to make an announcement that we've been seeing a great rise in the number of people who have either been, who are now either unemployed or underemployed, and as a result are being impacted in their housing. And the city has received about $1.9 million from HUD in what they call COVID ESG funding, which are dollars that will or that can be used to help prevent homelessness and provide rapid rehousing. So those dollars are now available and can be accessed through our partner who is administering the fund, the Continuum of Care. So that ends my report.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Brown.
I'd just like to ask Attorney Colvin one other question.
Sure.
I mentioned those garbage cans.
Yes.
At Tolliston. They're not really garbage cans. They're 55-gallon drums.
I understood you.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Councilman Brewer.
This is for Attorney Colvin, Chief of Staff. Do you know anything about that meeting that's supposed to take place tomorrow with the schools? I referenced earlier about Thea Bowman not being included. I want to make sure that, you know, if there is a meeting tomorrow, that they are included?
I'm not sure about a meeting per se, but I do know that the Gary Community School Corporation intends to make an announcement about how they're going to handle their coming school year, at least the first semester. And I know that they reached out to 21st Century Charter School and asked if they wanted to participate. I don't know if she reached out to Thea Bowman or not, but this is a Gary Community School Corporation driven press conference where she's talking about how they're going to handle the school year for Gary Community School kids.
Is the city involved in that press conference any kind of way?
I believe it's here. They're utilizing the city hall, but it's an announcement about the schools.
Okay.
And Dr. McNulty is the one who is kind of guiding the effort.
Yes, I do know that pretty much I think all the charter schools kind of take the lead of whatever Gary Public School does. So
That's
a lot of people want to make sure that they're on the same page.
Okay.
Thank you so
I'm not
much.
sure if she reached out to them or not. I know she reached out to 21st Century.
Okay. All right. I'll make sure I make some calls in the morning. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Have we, Attorney Colvin, established a date for the state of the city? I know we had that conversation earlier this year. Is that something still on the, I know it's required, but
It's still on the horizon. We haven't had a firm date, but I know that he wants to do it by the end of the summer. So probably maybe August or September.
Okay, thank you. And just lastly, I don't know whether Chief Evans, he may not be on anymore. I think he's on. How are we doing in terms of vehicles? I know that there have been some vehicles purchased. I understand an Expedition as well as an Explorer, and that these are all been assigned to the mayor. Is that the case? And there's also the former mayor's vehicle. What I want to be clear, I hear various things, but I know that the police officers have been complaining about the lack of vehicles. And it seems like we are purchasing vehicles. And I'd like to know to whom those have been assigned.
And may I say something too? I know that the chief can speak as well. But I'm in the process as the interim controller of identifying dollars for police cars as well. So that's something, we just finished paying off a lease out of some funding that had been available previously. Those dollars now will be available to purchase new cars. So that's something that I'll be discussing with the chief as well on how we intend to proceed with cars and how I think we may be able to use the same process we used before with Ford Motor Credit.
So is it true that we purchased an Expedition and an Explorer recently?
2 cars were purchased.
And to whom are those assigned?
They've been assigned to the mayor. One is to the mayor, and one is to access to the police department. There actually 4 cars purchased, 2 to the police department as well.
And where is the Yukon Extended? To whom has that been assigned?
I'll have to leave that to the chief. I don't know.
Okay. I was just curious. I know there's been a lot of vehicle purchases, and I know that the officers have certainly
Those are the
complained.
only purchases that I'm aware of at this point.
Okay. So there are 2 vehicles or 3 vehicles assigned to the mayor?
So there are
The mayor has a vehicle. I'll let Brian speak.
So there are a total of 3 vehicles assigned to the mayor's detail. One of them was the vehicle from the previous mayor. It had a lot of high mileage on it and may not be able to continue in its lifespan for much longer. 4 vehicles were just purchased. We have 2 vehicles which we're going to use as undercover vehicles. We purchased 3 vehicles last year in 2019, but this year a total of 4 vehicles were purchased. And we are in the process, like Chief of Staff Colvin said, of purchasing, paying off our loan and looking to refinance with Ford Credit so we can do a mass vehicle purchase. That's important to us, purchase as many police certified vehicles as we can. Right now, those vehicles, even if we purchased them today, it would be several months before we got them because of COVID, how they haven't built them. So these are inventories that they had in stock. They are not actually, 3 of them are not actually law enforcement rated. They don't have the law enforcement suspension or the police interception suspension. They're really suitable for administrative, undercover, or investigative work.
So just for my clarification, you said that 3 vehicles are assigned to the mayor's detail.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yukon, and 2 other vehicles.
Any other questions of city officials?
I did have a statement, Mr. President.
Councilman Lay?
Attorney Colvin, you can mention to the mayor that I may not need that $250 that I sort of attempted to strong arm out of him on Saturday morning for the PAGE program. It appears that maybe the program that I'm suggesting, I'm sort of going to stop working on it and simply follow the council in terms of what is being suggested. They will put it under the mayor's youth program. It's too much work, and too much work has been done on it to continue. So I will cease to do that and let the council have the program they previously had in previous years. So he'll probably be happy that he don't have to give me the $250, nor do he have to be a resource person. And I certainly will notify everyone else, including Attorney Williams. You can hold on to your money for the books, and I will see what the council program looked like. So,
well,
in other words, I will not appear and debate and argue what I thought would be a better program. When I mentioned it, Councilman Brewer sort of laughed. So I'm going to yield that their program is the one that the council would be more in favor of.
Well, I certainly hope that you will reconsider.
No, there's no need of me wasting any additional time. I mean, it's causing conflict. It's causing too much argument within, or debate. I use argument a little bit different. So what I can do is sit back and then see what happens on the other one, because it would have to be a tremendous amount of work to be ready by August. In other words, it's a lot of work has been done, but to get through this by August to line up all the students, I would have to sort of wait right now until the 28th or after the 28th, maybe even after August the 4th. And that's just too much. So let's see what happens with the other one.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I certainly know that the program that you and I discussed was very robust. And I think it probably seems like there may have been some miscommunication. Not so much conflict, but maybe just the communication chain was a little.
I thought I did, Mr. President. I really think Attorney Caldwell, Councilwoman Caldwell will admit we had a lot of conversations regarding the PAGE program. In fact, many, many more than I had with you. Many, many more. So again, I'm yielding to what they're doing. In other words, I don't have a problem with it, because one, it would have required me to expend a tremendous amount of.
I think your computer is, I think we lost Councilman Lay. I don't know what happened, like you froze up, but Councilwoman Barnes-Caldwell, I think you were about to speak.
I was saying we did have extensive conversation, but the last thing that we had at the committee meeting was that we were coming back to the committee with different paperwork and everything. That is the last thing. That's why it was still on the books, and that we were coming back to the committee meeting.
Right, and I understand that, and I think it was kind of lost in translation, but I think we can all work it out at the committee meeting and make sure that we have what's best for everybody to make it work.
Okay.
All right. Any other folks with questions for the administration? All right. I think we have done a lot of business tonight. We've certainly had a productive meeting, and our next meeting will be on Tuesday, August 4th, 2020. Thank everyone for your participation. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Stand adjourned. Have a good evening.
Thank you.